Okay, here's a raw look into how to build out specific things for your agentic workflows. This is going to be a video where I go from start to finish on one specific thing that I have already created a prompt for, so that you can see exactly what the flow is. And if we run into any problems, we're just going to wing it, see what happens, and see how we end up with this, the end of this video. This is very, very different to basically any single video that you would see from any person who's showing you how to create AI agents, NAN stuff, agentic workflows, etc. online, because they've already done the thing before they get into the video. I haven't, so we're going to have some fun with this one. Here is a quick understanding of something that I am trying to build. So I have this thing called the Watcher, which I've gone in and I've made a ginormous conversation with, which highlights a bunch of different things based on a global goal, which is to basically get around all of the current issues or bottlenecks that are currently happening inside of my operating system that's going on with my agency right now. So what we're going to do is, I'm not going to walk you through the entire what I've done here in intricate detail. I will say that all I've done is I've basically copied the idea of plan mode in Cursor, which asks you, a bunch of different questions about what you'd want for specific things, which are all in multiple choice. And instead of, having only one or two back and forths, I've had about 4 back and forths, and I've created about 80 different questions, and it's created a gigantic product specification, of which I've then chunked into bite-sized pieces. And the first bite-sized piece is what we're going to do today. And the first bite-sized piece has this prompt here, where the deliverable is to run a script, see which projects need attention, and show me what to do right now. This is the Cursor prompt. I need a project health monitor that checks my Airtable base for stuck projects. This is my base ID. This is the table. These are the detection rules. And this is a couple of things that you need to do in order to show me what needs to be done. Now, I've already put this inside of a chat window here. I'll close this chat window. I'll just close that one there. And then we'll go back into operations workflows, which is where everything is right now. So here, we're just going to run this. So you can see all of the information here is the information that I had inside of Claude. I'll show you something that I've been doing just to save a little bit of money. Instead of using Opus 4.5 for absolutely everything, I've decided to use Sonnet 4.5 for the planning stages, and then Opus 4.5 for the creation stages. So let's run it. Let's see what happens. What I'm going to do to kind of make this, relatively interesting is, instead of just having back and forth conversations whilst the thing does stuff, I may cut and paste different parts of this video, or just leave it running to explain things that actually need to be explained, so that there isn't just a bunch of dead space. But we've already got some action here whilst I've been talking, and you can see here that all it's saying is, I'll help you create a project health monitor for your Airtable base. Let me check your existing directory structures to understand your setup, and then I'll ask a few clarifying questions. Now, what I'll always do is I'll always read these thoughts. I'll always read these thoughts, especially right at the start, so that I can see what's happening. And usually I'll read as the agent gets started as well. The first stage is usually about a bunch of commands that need to be made, which I really don't care about, because usually it fails and then retries and then it fixes itself. But it's more sort of logic that I want to know. I can see your existing DOE architecture setup. Before I create the plan, I need to clarify a few details. What are the exact field names in your Airtable automations and build-outs table? I need to know the names for project, task, name, field, I'll provide the field names. Please type them in the next message. Oh, this is so long. Okay. Do you have an Airtable personal access token ready? I need instructions on, I know how to create one, but it's not actually been made. So I'm actually going to skip this question and go, how do you want to run the monitor? Run it manually from terminal wherever I want to check. Set up a scheduled job to run automatically. Both. And I'm going to click both. And then for number 2, I'm going to say, for number 2, get off caps block. I don't know why I'm shouting. For number 2, I don't have a PAT, but know how to get one, and will update the .env file. What I'm also going to do, this might take a little bit of time, and it may be a stupid idea for me to do this in the middle of this video, but I can't be bothered to get the names or the field names for everything inside of my Airtable, just typing it out one by one. So what I might do is use the Airtable MCP, which I have attached to my Claude desktop, and basically get that to do exactly what I need to do. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I am going to open up my Claude again, and I'm going to get the answer to that question in a very, very easy way. So I'm back here inside of my Claude. So I'll just close the sidebar for extra room. And then I'm going to say that, because the question is this, I'm just going to screenshot this. And then I'm going to go in to my Claude again, and I'm going to grab that exact information with a prompt that I'll write this off screen because it will just take too long. All right, so I've run it, and it's used the Airtable MCP to list bases, and then it's grabbed the base schema, and it's given me the answer to my question. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to slap it straight back into Cursor. Here are the fields and names with IDs. Wow, IDs. And then paste. So that there is giving it enough context for it to continue going. So we're just going to pause until more questions come out. This one here is asking me if the projects that are in blocked / missing permissions is a status choice value, a separate field, or not needed. And it's actually a status choice. So the fact that it's gone and done its, 3 run throughs and it's only asked me the final question, what it's going to do is it's going to create a plan. This plan is going to give me exactly this, which is an explanation of what it's going to do from not just technical aspects, but also business related or goal related aspects. And then it's also going to create a to-do list, as well as a gigantic diagram as well, which is actually nice. So the thing to do is always check everything here. Read it and make sure everything is good. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so after going over this, and I'll move my face out of the way so that you can see what's going on here. After going over this, there are only a couple of changes, and I have to move my face again because I'm now in the way. But the changes I wanted to make were this. In the report, group flagged projects by client and then sort by severity. And also I provided the .env with the Airtable PAT. So it's got some information here which I wanted to change, mostly these. And from there, that has enabled me to basically, going by that, I know exactly what needs to be done. This here is something that I haven't done just yet, but I'll walk you through doing. Now, I don't have a .env file inside of this specific operations workflows folder. So we're going to create one together. I'm not going to show you the generation of my API key, but I'll show you exactly what goes into a .env file. So if I click on new file and I just type in .env, you'll see that it comes up with a cog. This is its own thing here. Now, what it was asking for, if I go back into the plan, which I can see over here at the top, it was asking me to add Airtable _PAT equals your personal access token here. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to click Control S. Control S, Control S. You always have to click Control S. And then now is just the time for me to go in and basically go into my Airtable and then grab my own personal access token. So I'll do that and then I'll come back. So now I've gone in, I've created Cursor, which has access to all workspaces and bases, and it has these scopes. And what I've done through that is I've added it to this .env file. So now I'm going to continue, and what it's going to do is it's going to edit the plan based on the information that I've just provided it. So saying, yep, I'll update the plan, and then it's going to read the plan and then read my input and then continue as described. And now what it's done is it's given me an understanding of what the items are that are going to be inside of the output. Now, for my own clarification, I just want to confirm that this is coming out inside of Cursor. We're not going to attach it to Slack just yet inside of a Slack channel. So what I'm going to do is just ask it the question. Yep, and it is confirmed that it is going to just spit the answers out in here. So now we run it. So now I'm going to change it from plan to agent, and then I'm going to change it from Sonnet 4.5 to Opus 4.5. If you're watching this 4 years into the future, just pick the Frontier model and pick a cheaper model with reasoning in order to do this planning. This is the reason why I've used Sonnet 4.5 versus Opus 4.5 in this case. And now we're going to say, build it. So what it's going to do now is it's going to read all of the information, and what it's going to do is it's going to tackle each of these to-dos. If you, like me, and you'll see this in a second, when it starts to run a bunch of different, what do you call this? When it's going to start running a bunch of different terminal commands, you'll see that my setting is set to run everything, which is basically called YOLO mode. YOLO mode is what happens when, irrespective of how the conversation is going or what's talking back and forth, you just run absolutely everything that would be run. And this is how you one-shot things without being stopped in different parts left and right, because it can start to be a little bit annoying if you decide to go to the bathroom whilst this is working and you know that it's starting to do something that is really, really simple and it needs permission for every single terminal call, which is obviously just nonsense. So what we can see here is the project health, monitor project health.md has just been created. And this has been stuck inside of the directives in my operations workflows list here. So we have ask user questions.md, which I added a little while ago, which I was playing around with. And then we have monitor project health.md, and monitor project health.md is what's being written right now, or what's just been written. And all it is doing is it's describing what's going to happen, how it's going to run, and what the output's going to be. It's literally 100 lines. It's going to be nice and quick. I'm going to let this run, and we'll be back when this has finished. And if there's anything interesting that happened inside of the thinking, then we will get to it and I'll describe it retroactively. Okay, so here's something interesting. What's just happened is it has gone through and done everything it needed to do. It's created monitor project health.md, and it's also created the Airtable client and the monitor project Python script as well. Something interesting that happened inside of the thinking was this. It checked the script to see if it was working, but it noticed a problem, which was that the client field is showing record IDs instead of actual client names. This is because the associated client field is a links record field in Airtable, and it returns a record ID instead of a client name. So it needs to either look up the actual client names or check if there's another way to get the client name. Now, from what I know, there is already a lookup value attached to this, which is going to essentially capture what the associated client's name is versus what the record ID is. The record ID is always going to be the single source of truth. However, it doesn't make sense for me to only use a record ID, because if the naming system is what a lot of this is going to be working from, and it needs to go back and forth doing a bunch of things between a bunch of different tables, when I can just expose the name of the column, then I can just get around this problem in and of itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double check inside of my system if there is an associated client name inside of the specific table that it's asking for, and then I'll be able to answer the questions that it's giving me right now. And you can see here that it was going to ask me a question, because right at the bottom it says, actually, let me ask the user about this, since the client field is showing record IDs instead of readable names. So I'll be right back. And the answer to that is I already had a lookup field. So I just told it I have a lookup field and this is the name. So we're going to have that one go ahead, and then it's going to say, oh, perfect. And then it's going to update the code. And then from there, we're going to get a few other things that we're going to look at. So this is actually the part that I like to read the thoughts the most. Whenever there's been a small change and it doesn't need to run a bunch of different things, I would want to have an understanding as to exactly what's happening in these later stages, because this is where things can go awry. So it's right at the start, when it's building things that are the initial outlay, and then it's whenever it's slightly started to go off-road and you want to readjust it. If it started to slightly go off-road, and as I'll show you, well, I'm actually not going to show you, because now this has just got all of my client names inside of it. What's actually happening here is that it's basically going to take all of the things that's currently running, and if you only look at what's happening right at the end, you're going to end up in a position where there's just no there's just nothing that it's going to be able to create for you which is going to be as good as you want it to, because you just let it like run loose and just do a bunch of nonsense. So it's only given me just like a small sliver of some of the clients that I've have been working with. So I'll just leave this here. That's fine. So now it's saying that the project health monitor is fully working, and so to run it anytime, do this, or basically use this. So we can look at this and take a brief understanding of what's currently going on by giving this a brief look at I would say the comments. So I can't read what, so I know what defining functions is, because a lot of this code will always start off with an understanding of what this is, importing a bunch of libraries, and then after importing libraries, it will load the .env file. After that, it will define a few functions, and those functions will be either if statements, which start off usually with like error handles or whatever it may be, and then other things on top of that. Fetch projects is, you can even see here in the comments, these are the arguments, this is what it returns. There's going to be another one at some point, but you can see all of this code is also inside of here. That's the entire code. So yeah, again, defining functions, and then the importing of the libraries, and then the comments. Those are the only things I read when it comes to reading the .py files. And then from there, it's an understanding of what the .md files are doing. So now, if I wanted to, I could prompt this and get a complete update as to every single element of my system. This is a really, really nice and small build. And if you take a look at, hopefully in the sidebar or in my channel, there's a video of how to not prompt, or how to know when to prompt like a maniac. And that will show you how I even got to that prompt in and of itself. There are about 14 different conversations that I'm going to have that are just like this. And normally what I would do is I would have 3 or 4 going at once, building what needs to be built, taking the information that I've currently received from the master prompt that was broken down into a bunch of smaller prompts, and then working through those. So that's a really brief understanding of how to actually start these, what to look for, and how to go through and make the implementations that you need to make. So there's a bunch more videos on my channel about this, and there are some great videos just describing exactly what the heck's going on here anyways, which you'll be able to find probably there, or maybe there, who knows. So yeah, there's a bunch of things that you can find. Have a look at the channel and see if there's anything else that you would like to see.